It is a somewhat common joke in our village that if you see a man and a woman, a male and a female, walking down the path holding hands, you know they are boyfriend and girlfriend. And if you see a man walking casually 10 meters ahead of a woman carrying a bundle of firewood on her head, you know that they've been married for decades. This is not how it should be between spouses. Marriage is companionship.
All the way from Bokota village in Limpopo, South Africa, we bring you Missionary Minds, where you can learn about family, church history, biblical worldview issues, and of course, missions. All from the mind of a real-world missionary of almost 20 years. Boti Paul, it's been said that women think in pink and men in blue. Women's thoughts are interconnected and related like a bowl of spaghetti, while men are simple and compartmentalized like the squares on a waffle. As a result, some believe that marriage is about commitment, civility, and every now and then maybe a sprinkle of romance. And with that in mind, in today's episode, we'd like to know, should spouses be best friends? Over to you, Mufundhisi.
First, the story. Heinrich Bullinger was a great Swiss reformer. He was a theologian. He was an author of countless books. He was the owner of an amazingly long and flowing beard that could be measured by one's belt buckle. And he was the successor to Ulrich Zwingli as the head of the church in Zurich in the 1500s. But perhaps his greatest legacy was his family. This would be contrary to great men like John Wesley and George Whitefield. When you read their biographies, they were titans when it came to preaching. They were titans when it came to evangelism and visiting, but there was certainly something to be desired when it came to their family life. Not so with Heinrich Bullinger. He had a wonderful marriage. He was wed at age 25 when he married a committed Christian and a former nun by the name of Anna. Now, it was common to marry former nuns back then. Martin Luther did it. Martin Butzer did it, and so did Bullinger, Heinrich, and Anna. And they, in time, modeled a wonderful marriage. And they had godly children. They had 11 children, 6 boys and 5 girls, and they even adopted several others. And check this out. All 6 of their sons became pastors. Heinrich was a wonderful father and a wonderful husband. He loved playing with his kids. He loved playing with his grandkids, and sometimes he would write them verses for Christmas, similar to what Martin Luther did with his own children. And so I give all this background to say Bullinger had ethos. He had clout. So when he wrote a wildly popular book on the husband and wife union called The Christian State of Matrimony, we ought to listen to how he defined marriage. Let's just sit back, take our notebooks, pull out our pen, and start taking some notes when this great husband and father speaks to us. And this is how he defines marriage: as a lawful knot of one man and one woman, so that they may dwell together in friendship and honesty, one helping and comforting the other, rejecting uncleanness and bringing up children in the fear of God. This is astounding to me. Among the first ways that he defines marriage is that it ought to be friendship. And you can even see this later on in their marriage when several of the family members of the Bullinger home died during the plague, including his wife, because she had nursed her husband back to health, and then she ended up herself dying of the disease. You look at this and you say, whoa, this couple, this is not just about a partnership. They were friends that they modeled even for us today.
They were friends. I wonder how many marriages that can be said of in our day and as we look in society. It makes me think about a time when I traveled back to my home country, Zimbabwe, lost year, and I was driving around the neighborhood with my mom, and we saw this couple. They were walking together briskly in the street. There's one of them had their walking stick, and they were more advanced in years. And I stopped them and I was like, I saw you a couple of years back on the same evening walk, and you've been doing this since then. How long have you been taking these walks? And he was like, we take these walks every evening for over 30 years now. And I was like, wow, that is a small picture of what friendship can look like. So please take us to the scriptures here and explain to us, what does companionship look like and what's the significance of it?
So it makes me think of Genesis 2:18. God said it's not good that man should be alone. Or we go to Genesis 3:12, when Adam acknowledged that God had given him Eve to be with me. So this is to be a partnership and this is to be a friendship. But mostly I think of Proverbs 2:17. This would be kind of the flip side, the bad side of what friendship ought not to look like. Here we find the adulteress, and she forgets the importance of closeness in marriage, which is why she left, according to Proverbs 2:17, the companion of her youth. Now, I like the translation companion in that verse, even though some translations simply say husband. But the word companion means to be familiar with. It refers to one that is well known. These are the kinds of marriages that win the husband and wife spouse games at couples get-togethers because they're asked, what is your spouse's favorite candy? Or what is your spouse's favorite Bible verse? Or what is your spouse's great aunt's name? And they get all of the answer. And the reason is because they are not just husband and wife in some kind of contract. They are companions. They are friends. And the problem with the adulteress, and the reason they broke up, is because they ceased to be companions. They ceased being friends. They merely lived in the same house. And we see this many times today. They are not officially divorced, but for all practical reasons, they are. They live in separate houses, or they might sleep in separate rooms. They have totally different lives. They have different friends. They have different partnerships, different relationships, different bank accounts, different cars. Everything is different. There is no friendship. Ecclesiastes 4:10. Woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. That is what we want in marriage, the friendship between a husband and a wife, a companionship. Let's not lose that word. It's not just a husband and wife. They are friends. They are companions.
That's such a sobering reality to think about, the adulteress who left the companion of her youth. And my wife and I are often speaking of examples like that, sad situations of breakdown in marriages, either happening quickly or happening late into the marriage. If we're to get back to the fundamentals and the basics here, as a recently married man, how should I be thinking biblically about my wife?
Yeah, so we asked the question, what are some tests? Like, how do I know if we have this friendship? How do I know if we're best friends? How do we know if we have the kind of companionship? What will it look like? So let me give a couple examples of how friendship expresses itself. The first one I would say is that when a couple is following their particular role, that is the role of the husband or the role of the wife, you can start to see the friendship forming. A man, for example, shows friendship to his wife by giving his life for her. He takes the bullet, he works the extra job, etc. And what does John say? No greater love than this, that a man lay down his life for his friend. So men, if you want to know how to love your wife, be her friend. How are you to be her friend? You lay down your life for her, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And of course, the wife has roles too. She is to be the helper, which means the grotesque idea of stay-at-home dads while the wife goes off to work and the roles are reversed, that idea is utterly unbiblical. He is to provide for the family, 1 Timothy 5, verse 8, and she is to be the helper. Scripture calls Eve the helper of Adam in Genesis 2. So when the husband and wife are following their roles, what they're really doing is they are expressing friendship to each other. Man, my wife feels so much like a friend to me when she's right in the center of her role. And I would say, she'd probably say the same thing about me. When I'm in the center of my role, she senses not only love, but maybe as a subset, she feels that friendship. Animals couldn't help Adam because they were not made in God's image, and their nature was different from Adam. But Eve could help her husband by complementing his weaknesses and completing him where he needed help. And this comes back to the word help, right? Because many people view the word help as degrading, but it ought not to be that way. I think of Melanchthon's wife. Here she is in a rocking chair, using her big toe to rock the baby in the cradle while she's reading a book, and she's finding great illustrations and anecdotes that can help her husband's preaching, the great Philip Melanchthon, while all the while helping with the children. So we ought not to think of help as a pejorative word. In fact, help itself is used to describe God Almighty. 1 Samuel 7, the Lord has helped us. Or how many times has the psalmist spoken about the Lord as our helper? And it makes me think of the friends of the paralyzed man that showed their friendship and love by serving him and doing for him what he could not do, which was take him to the healer. And this is what spouses do to show friendship. They follow their roles and do for the other spouse what they cannot do on their own. The wife is a helper to the husband, and the husband is a leader and protector and provider for the wife, thus showing her friendship.
Thanks for that, Boti Paul, and you hit the nail right on the head there. I am so saddened by what feminism has robbed ladies of, and you explained it so well that people often look at help. The word help has negative connotations, but as we look at scripture, we know that help is talking about something of great significance. God was a helper to his people. And as you said in a previous episode, men need help. We need great help. And so I'm very thankful for that. Emphasize a little more on some of the other ways that we can foster closeness in our marriages.
Yeah, so as review, we're talking about how friendship expresses itself in marriage. And it kind of tests, like, how is our friendship? One would be, are you following your roles as husband and wife? Let me give another one, and that is friendship is often expressed through sexual intimacy. Friendship in marriage brings joy to the couple and deepens their relationship together. We think of Proverbs 5, drink water from your own cistern, flowing water from your own well. Verse 17, let them be for yourself alone and not for strangers with you. So, in other words, strangers are over here, but there's a kind of intimacy that comes with friends. There's a kind of intimacy that comes with companions. There's a kind of intimacy that comes with a husband and wife. Let your fountain be blessed and rejoice in the wife of your youth. So if there is a healthy sexual intimacy in that marriage, good chance their friendship is doing really well. On the flip side, spouses that are fighting rarely have sexual intimacy. And the reason is because sexual intimacy is so much more than mere physical pleasure. Just one cutting word can turn a bedroom icy cold. So we would say spouses are friends first, lovers second. That's why in counseling, and there's issues with sexual intimacy, you talk about their friendship. There's got to be things behind that. This is one reason why spouses living apart is so destructive to the marriage. It's not only for sexual reasons, which is true, but it's for friendship reasons. A man that works on the other side of the country while his wife is back home cannot daily maintain the friendship that is so vital for a flourishing marriage. Oh, but I provide for her. Yes. Oh, but I visit. Yes. But marriage is about companionship and friendship. When we look at the definition of marriage in Genesis 2:24, it is leaving, it is cleaving, it is becoming one flesh, it is a bond. There is not only friendship, there is best friendship that must exist for a healthy husband and wife to live together.
Such a good point. And on that, Boti Paul, I'd like to ask and find out for those couples where the husband is involved in work that has him away for a while. You come from a very patriotic country, which is proud of its military prowess, and this often has soldiers going on tour. What can they do to still foster the closeness that comes from sexual intimacy? What can they do for their marriage in those circumstances?
And that's not necessarily new. I mean, all throughout the Bible, we have examples of men going off and fighting battles, and the scriptures understand this. And if going off to battle would preclude a healthy marriage, then I don't think scripture would allow that. And so when you have those situations, I would say just a couple things. One, make it as temporary as possible. In other words, this might have to be a hard situation we're in right now, but let's agree we want this to be temporary. And then second, do as much as you can, long distance. It's easier now than ever before because of technology, to write consistently. So the man who lives with his wife might not feel the need to write her a letter every single day because they live in the same home every day. If you live on the other side of the world, or you have a job in another city, or you're in the military, then don't look at your friend who lives with his wife and say, well, he doesn't write to her. Yeah, you're in a different situation. It might mean writing her every day. It might mean constant communication to keep that depth of friendship alive and kindled.
That's very helpful. I think of friends who have jobs which take them around the world, or pastors. I actually remember a time when I was with Pastor Tim, and he missed his wife so much that we pulled into the driveway together, and I was waiting for the gate to open, but he had gone straight to his phone and he was thinking about his wife and just texting her on the spot. It's beautiful to see those examples. So what are some other ways that a husband can practically foster this closeness and this companionship?
Yeah, so we talked about a couple of ways of just how friendship in marriage expresses itself. It expresses itself when the spouses are following their roles correctly. You really see that friendship form. It also expresses itself in sexual intimacy. So if there is a healthy friendship, then there is going to be most commonly a healthy sexual intimacy. But let me just come away from that and talk about a few practical ways that this can play itself out, that a husband or a wife can show friendship to each other. One that comes to mind is that the husband should always be looking for ways to show love and affection to his wife in front of the children. Now, Genesis 2:24 shows us that the husband-wife relationship is the highest earthly union a couple can have, even above the spouse's relationship with his or her parents and even with their children. So children need to know that daddy wants to please mama more than us. And amazingly, children are not filled with jealousy about this. It's common for parents to say, I love my children more than anything else, and kind of the spouse is off to the side. But remember, the relationship with a parent and a child is not a one flesh union. It is that way with the husband and wife. In fact, when children see how close that bond is, it fills them not with envy, but with security. So here would be one practical way you might want to consider doing this in your home. We have something called 5:11 time in our home. It comes from 1 Thessalonians 5:11, which says, encourage one another and build each other up. So we've done this for years. I'd say maybe every couple weeks, we say, let's gather to have 5:11 time, where you'll choose someone to be encouraged. Let's say in this case, it's mother. And you say to the children, all right, here's our time to encourage her. Raise your hand. And they raise their hand and say, I am just so thankful for mother because of X, Y, Z. And then this is a chance for the father or husband to model this, where he publicly praises his wife, publicly praises the mother. You are so excellent. These meals that you make, or how you decorate the home, or how you take care of the children. He gives specific ways. He's teaching the children how to praise the wife. Make sure, husbands, that you are publicly praising and loving your wife in front of the children and even church members, whoever, because that really builds up the friendship. They feel loved and they feel cherished.
Thanks, brother. I don't mean to embarrass you here, but I'm just going to flip this on its head and give you a little 5:11 time. Thinking of recently, you just came back from a rare, short preaching tour in Botswana and Zimbabwe. And as soon as you got back, the first thing you wanted to do is turn to Proverbs 31 and you wanted to praise your wife in front of your children. And we were all seated there during family worship, watching you point by point, praising your wife. And I've often watched your children and they just gaze and they come back and they tell stories about your wife as if they were actually there. But sometimes it's before they were even born, because of this example of publicly praising and loving your wife. What other examples can you give about companionship, how it's expressed and fostered?
Yeah, let me give just a couple more examples. Spouses make an effort, and this might be perhaps geared a little bit more towards the African context, but make an effort to sit together in church. Make an effort to walk side by side, not several meters apart. Take frequent dates. Share the same bank account. Don't refer to things as mine or me, but rather ours and us. It is a somewhat common joke in our village that if you see a man and a woman, a male and a female, walking down the path holding hands, you know they are boyfriend and girlfriend. And if you see a man walking casually 10 meters ahead of a woman carrying a bundle of firewood on her head, you know that they've been married for decades. This is not how it should be between spouses. Marriage is companionship. It makes me think of Malachi 2 and verse 14, which talks about the wife as a friend by covenant, which says, but you say, why does he not? Because the Lord was witness between you and the wife of your youth, to whom you have been faithless, though she is your companion and your wife by covenant. And then let me just give one more example, and that is, make sure that you communicate to your wife that she is never a bother to you or a problem to you. She doesn't cramp your style, to put in the old verbiage. She doesn't end your fun. She's not a ball and chain. Never use that terminology, men. She doesn't ruin your day by what she asks for, or vice versa. The husband doesn't ruin your day by what he asks for. One of the most common memes that I see in South Africa, if you can just picture this now, is a picture of some ladies with their ZCC uniforms coming back from church. And the meme says, when you see them coming back from church, just know that your weekend is over. And that's the viewpoint that many have of marriage. It isn't a friendship. It's some kind of loose business transaction. But isn't the mark of a real friend not simply an acquaintance, but a real friend is someone that you can go to them with anything at any time without being a bother. It makes me think of Luke 11, when the story says, which of you who has a friend will go to him at midnight and say to him, friend, lend me 3 loaves, for a friend of mine has arrived on a journey and I have nothing to set before him. The idea is friend A came unannounced to the home of friend B, and friend B wasn't prepared. But they were such friends that he could just show up whenever he wanted. And friend B had to go to friend C at midnight and ask for bread. Those are real friendships. No preliminaries. We're not afraid to talk to each other about anything at any time. And a husband and wife would really do well to communicate this to each other. You're not a problem. You're not a bother. You're not a ball and chain. You're not a difficulty. I am happy to be your helper. I am happy to love you. I am happy to take the bullet. I am happy to serve you however I can. Should the husband and wife be best friends? Absolutely.
What a treat, Mufundhisi. I am definitely eager to go and see my wife right now, so I will try and hurry with this last part. To our audience, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to rate it and subscribe to keep posted with more upcoming content. Feel free to share this episode with someone who might find it interesting and submit any questions you may want answered on a future podcast. You can also visit betweentwocultures.com for other resources like this. I'm your host, Yamikani Katunga, and until next time, that's it from Missionary Minds.